my name is Tyron Siren. I'm a partner at Hort Assets. I've been in the immigration industry for, well, this December will be 15 years. I'm an American. I specialize in U.S. immigration programs, particularly two programs. The EB3 program, which is an investment visa and pathway to green card and citizenship. And then also another program called the EB3 program, which is an employment-based program as well. But it has a requirement that you come and work in the U.S. Both are quite excellent programs to immigrate to the U.S. with your family. And it's also, but they have very different purposes and very different requirements. But both will ultimately get you and your family in the U.S., within a couple of years or so. But today we're going to focus on the EB3. If you have any questions about the EB5 investment visa, please reach out to me or your financial advisor at Hort Assets. Okay. Moving on here. So today we'll talk about a bit about Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. Holborn Pass is a division of Holborn Assets, which is the immigration and investment by residency program. So Holborn Assets is a global wealth management firm. It started in 1998. It's a British family firm, but it, of course, welcomes people from around the world into their family. Has more than 500 employees, 23 international offices, and in fact, I think there's probably a few more added on to that, and more than 20,000 clients. Holborn Pass does investments with global mobility benefits and also different sorts of programs that help families, realize true global mobility. Holborn Pass has done more than 1,000 applicants. I myself, having been doing this for about 15 years, have done about 2,000 families to the U.S. And so I'm really happy to be working with Holborn the last almost 4 years now. Again, Holborn, although I'm going to focus on the U.S. programs today, particularly the EB3 program, it's important to note that Holborn is offers a full range of immigration and migration products, from citizenship programs, which will get you a passport, you and your family a passport usually within about a year, those are quite exciting programs for people who are just looking to get citizenship and better global mobility fairly immediately at a very reasonable price. We also offer a range of residency programs, particularly European programs like in Malta, Portugal, Greece, and Spain. Portugal has been a particularly popular program with us, and you've probably seen several webinars by some of my colleagues at Holborn on Portugal. Again, there's been some changes to that program. If you are interested, again, please reach out to me or one of the advisors at Holborn, and they'll be happy to update you on the new programs and the new opportunities with residency. Now, I'm going to focus, of course, today on the U.S. The U.S. is a bit different than most of the residency programs, and that is that it offers true permanent residency. What is true permanent, or what is permanent residency? Well, oftentimes you've heard the term green card, the U.S. green card, the coveted U.S. green card. A green card is permanent residency. And what is permanent residency, and how does it differ from, say, some of the programs that you might see in Europe, which are residency programs? Permanent residency is just that. It's permanent. So once you have it, it's basically forever. And although you might have to renew it every 10 years, it's a very simple renewal process. And as long as you haven't committed any major crimes, it could be it's a forever and permanent status, immigration status in the U.S., which leads directly to U.S. citizenship after 5 years. With a green card, you and your family enjoy all the benefits basically as a U.S. citizen, except for the right to vote. So you have the right to live anywhere in the U.S. you want, work anywhere in the U.S. you want, travel in and out of the U.S. freely, and children, for example, have the right to free public education from K through 12, as well as local tuition rates at universities, government scholarships, government loans for university. So there's really a lot of benefits to having the U.S. green card. And with the U.S. green card, just to be clear, you do keep your passport from whatever country you might be. If you're from the Philippines, you'd have to keep your Philippines passport as well as the U.S. green card. But again, America is a country of immigrants, and there are hundreds of ways to immigrate to the U.S. And each one of those immigration pathways has a very clear pathway to citizenship. But today, again, we're going to focus on one particular pathway, which not only leads you to U.S. permanent residency, but also gives you an opportunity to have a job with health care and a lot of benefits in America. So basically, people always ask, I should clear this up, why do they call it a green card? And that is simply because it's a little green card. After you'll get an initial visa to travel to the U.S. Once you land, you'll get a kind of a hard copy, an actual ID document, and it's a card, about like a driver's license that happens to be green. So just so it's clear on why it's called a green card. Now we're going to focus on the EB3 visa, particularly a subset sector of the EB3 visa called for unskilled workers. The reason we focus on unskilled workers, or I'd say unskilled employment opportunities, is because most everyone applies for these as long as you're in good health and willing to work, you basically qualify. So unlike say the EB5 visa, which requires $800,000 investment, there are no minimum assets and there's no investment required at all. There's no educational background required. There's no work experience required. There's no special language training required, or I should say, there's no, you don't have to take an English language exam like the TOEFL or the IELTS exam, like say Canada requires immigrants to take an English language exam. There's no English language required. However, I always say this: if you spoke no English, I would highly recommend start taking some English classes and start developing your English skills, because you will be moving to America, and English is one of the dominant languages and will be the language at the workplace. So it would really benefit you to learn some English, but there's not an exact exam or score that you have to obtain to qualify. You do have to provide a clean criminal record report or police clearance, a general medical checkup. Again, they just want to make sure that you're in general good health, and the most important part is that you have to have a employer in the U.S. who will sponsor you to work. So, and that's kind of one of the ways that we assist is we have a group of employers who do sponsor potential EB3 clients. So, and I'll be talking about one of the opportunities later on in this presentation. Okay, so the other nice thing about the EB3 process is it's a fairly straightforward and simple procedure. First of all, as an applicant or as one, we arrange for an employer. Again, we'll talk about that employer later. You apply for the job. Typically, how you do this is you make a short 1-minute video introducing yourself and explaining why you're qualified for the job, why you want to move to the U.S. It's a very simple video. We submit this to the employer, and they decide if they want to hire you. Typically, they do, as long as you're enthusiastic and willing to and committed to coming to the U.S. to work for them. At that point, we collect documents, very basic documentation, passports, marriage certificates, birth certificates of children, and then you'll get typically a job offer, and then on here we begin the immigration process, which typically the whole process will take less than 2 years, and at that point once you finish your interview at the U.S. consulate, you relocate to the U.S., you begin work, and you and your family, that's you, your spouse, and your children under the age of 21, all come to America, and when you land, you are permanent residents. So let me just go a little bit more into detail about this. So the first step, we obtain what's called a labor certificate, and that is when we apply to the U.S. Department of Labor. This is an official program, and they approve you. They approve the employer to hire foreign workers, and then also approve you, the foreign worker, as being qualified for this job. This process, I would say, takes 8 to 10 months typically, sometimes faster. Once we have that labor certificate, we apply for the U.S. Permanent residency or green card for your whole family. So it's you, your spouse, and your children under the age of 21. This process, if you use premium processing, can takes 15 days. If you can believe that, it's really pretty amazing. Like I said, it's an extra fee, but I think it's well worth it because the U.S. government actually guarantees a 15-day response, which, and if you don't do premium processing, you may have to wait 1 or 2 years. So typically, most people choose to do the premium processing, and it really is amazing that you can get a response from the U.S. government in 15 days. I'll give you an example. The EB3 investors who invest $800,000 do not get it premium processing. They might have to wait 1 or a year to get an approval, but the U.S. really wants people to come to work legally in America, so they try to make the process as quick and easy as possible to encourage people to go through the legal pathways to employment. Once you have your once you have an approval from the U.S. Immigration and Services, then you need to go to your local consulate or your nearest consulate and do an interview. These interviews are very short, lasting 5 to 10 minutes. They typically just ask questions about where are you going to work at? Who's your employer? How much money will you make? Do you intend to work permanently at this job? They want to make sure that you're aware of what you're doing, and where the job's located, and basically what you're getting into, and then you're very serious about taking this job, because that's the key to this program. Once you're approved at the U.S. consulate, you have 180 days, 6 months to travel to the U.S. Now, what's very unique about the EB3 program, if you compare it to almost any other U.S. immigration program, and certainly any other program around the world, is that when you land in the U.S., you and your family land, and you go to the immigration counter, you become permanent residents. This is quite unique. So this is not a work permit. I want to make that very clear. This is not a work permit where you're coming to work for a couple of years and then you can apply for permanent residency. This is you get full permanent residency when you land because you have the intention to go to work permanently at the employer at this job. So that's quite unique. So once you land, you'll be as the main applicant will be going to work at the job provided, but your spouse is allowed to take any job they'd like or qualified for. They can apply. You're allowed to basically live anywhere. Of course, you're going to be living in the location near your job, but you have freedom of mobility within the U.S. You can start side businesses. You can take second jobs. You are a full permanent resident, again, with basically all the same rights as a U.S. citizen. And in 5 years, you can apply for U.S. citizenship. And, your children can immediately attend public schools and get all the benefits of living in America. Okay, now we've talked about a little bit about Holborn and the services we provide and our background. We've talked about what a green card is, right? It's permanent residency. It gives you all the rights to travel in and out of the U.S., live anywhere you want, and for your kids to study. And now I just want to talk about the actual location, which this is a new location that we've just opened up. In fact, just this week. And typically we have, we'll offer this program or this location for a few months, 2 to 3 months. And then, until we find enough workers globally, to fill all the positions. So right now, we anticipate that this program will last, or that this location will last till February. So I would not delay making this decision because this is actually a really great location. It's located in a city called Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is in the northeast of the U.S. And for those of you old enough to listen to popular music in the 1980s, there's a very famous song about Allentown by Billy Joel, too. Just kind of a side note. Here, let's zoom in on the location. So Allentown is in the state of Pennsylvania. It's about a 2-hour drive from New York City, about an hour and a half drive from Philadelphia. It's maybe 3 hours from Washington, D.C., a few hours from Boston. So it's really in that northeast U.S. corridor, metropolitan area with some of the biggest and most important cities in America. And it just offers, this area has so many opportunities for you and your family, for your children's education opportunities. It's really a fantastic place to live. Allentown itself, the metropolitan area, is about 800,000 people, making it the third largest metro area in Pennsylvania. The city itself actually has about 60 or 70,000 people. The area around it, there's a couple connecting cities, is about 800,000. The median income is 51,000, which you'll see is probably about what your household income would be with the job. It's considered one of the top places to retire in America. Now, of course, you're not going there to retire. You're going there to work, but it does, say something about, it's a very pleasant place to live. It's safe. The cost of living is not that high. And there's a lot of parks. It's a really nice, the city itself is nice. And then the wider location, being near New York City and Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. is really incredible. Pennsylvania also has some of the best universities in America. Penn State University is a top 50 public university. They have Lehigh University, which is a top 50 private university, as well as the University of Pennsylvania, which is actually a top 10 university, which is a private university. But if you're, if you're living and working in Pennsylvania, and your children want to go to Penn State University, which is a really great university, they would only have to pay local tuition rates, which would be a savings of right about $20,000 a year. So if you're an international student, it costs $20,000 more a year to attend Penn State than if you're a local student. So, that's a savings of potentially $80,000 per child for university education, as well as your children have a lot of opportunities for government grants, government loans, and it's just a lot easier to access universities and money when you're a local student. So there's a lot of benefits to being a permanent resident or citizen, and particularly living in the state of Pennsylvania. You have a lot of great universities and schools around. Okay, now we've talked about the location. Let's talk about what the job is. Again, these are unskilled jobs, and even if you're a more highly skilled person, you can still qualify for these jobs, right? You still have you can still go there and work. America, again, we want people to immigrate legally, and everyone is welcome as long as you have a good attitude and are willing to do this job. So the jobs are production workers. These are actually photos from the site. You'll be working in a warehouse, basically packing boxes, putting books, perfumes, miscellaneous items in boxes on an assembly line, or you might be doing inventory. So it's just a basic job working in a warehouse. They're modern facilities. They're very nice, safe working spaces, and it includes, full health benefits. Typically, I'm going to say this is a little. Typically, I think the salaries now are right around 30 to 35,000. Things have gone up quite a bit. This is an older. This is from. I think this is not quite accurate, but but you'll be making at least 22,000. And the thing about this job too is that I always say this is the first job you'll have in the U.S. And and even within this company, you can move up. So for example, if I always give an example of we had a client once from Vietnam who was a CFO of a very large Vietnamese company, and she decided to do EB3, and she went to work at the job, and after a few months, she was talking to her manager, and he was asking her about her background, how she got here, and she said, "Oh, I'm basically a certified accountant." And he goes, "Oh, wow, well, what are you doing working here? Why are you sweeping the floors here?" She goes, "Well, this is the job I could take, and I decided it was worth it for my family to have the opportunity to move to the U.S." And he goes, "Well, geez, if you have that kind of skill, we always need help in the office." He said, "Do you think you could help in the accounting office?" And she ended up becoming the head of accounting at this company. So the point being is that just because you start out at kind of the entry level position, you can easily become a general manager, a shift manager, a regional manager for the company. These are large companies with multiple warehouses, so there's a lot of opportunity at these companies. All right, and they're flexible jobs. These facilities usually run 24 hours a day, so you kind of pick your shifts. And we have a network of EB3 employees already at this location, so it's you'll be able to there's some camaraderie there where and they can also help you out with where the good schools at and nice neighborhoods and that sort of thing. Okay, now the basic cost, I'm going to let you contact your financial advisor, or you can contact me, and we'll go through a detailed pricing and price scheduling. So with that, I'm going to kind of keep it short and sweet. And if anyone has questions, please go ahead, and I'll be happy to answer them. And we can, of course, always arrange private one-on-one discussions with you. Great. This is a pretty typical question. It says, how long before the applicant can change jobs? Now, this is what is unique about EB3. So when a client lands in the U.S., they are permanent residents, but they got permanent residency because they have the intent to work permanently at this job. So, and the job itself is not a contract job; it's an hourly job. You work by the hour. So the client must have the intent to work this job. These are real jobs. They pay pretty well. They're very good employees. But also, we realize that, and the U.S. government realizes that life is long and complicated. So, typically, after a year or two, people's lives change, and if they need to move on, they can. They're not tied to the job immigration-wise because they're already permanent residents, but they need to, they have to have the intent to work there permanently. But there is a reality that life changes. Maybe if they're a young person, they get married, and they move to a different state, or they follow other opportunities. So there's no exact time frame that they must work there, although they must have the intention to permanently work there. And I think that's key, that they really have to take this job seriously. Our employer sponsors people because we send people who are serious about working permanently at this job. Are Iranians eligible? Yes, they are. You can expect, if you're Iranian, to have probably an extra level of due diligence, given the kind of the geopolitical situation in the world now. So I'd say for Iranians and from people from certain countries, you might expect an extra year, maybe 2 years of due diligence by the U.S. government. But Iranians are certainly eligible to apply and certainly do get approved. We can look at the U.S. government records; they are still getting approved now, but do expect a bit of extra time. Can clients who've been rejected from the Canada, USA, UK, Australia, or Europe still apply for EB3? Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason. Everyone is welcome to apply. uh, I'd say probably 40 to 50% of the EB3 clients I've seen over the years have been rejected for a travel visa to the US, for whatever reason. I mean, people get rejected for travel visas to the US all the time. But that a travel visa to the US is a non-immigrant visa. We're looking at EB3 is an immigrant visa. So they don't consider you put down that you were rejected, but but it doesn't really have any effect on the immigration process. The fact that you were rejected from another country would have no bearing on your EB3 visa. Unless you're rejected from all these countries for criminal reasons. But no, it's I know so many, like I said, probably half the clients have been rejected for a U.S. visa in the past, and a lot of them have been rejected for visas to Canada and other countries too. So not an issue. Can you start the EB3 application while you're in the U.S.? Yeah. Certainly there are students who are studying in the U.S. who will start the EB3 application. If you're on a different, if you're and some sort of different sort of work visa, you start in the U.S. and do that. So that's not a problem. You can do it. So you can apply within the U.S. or outside the U.S. Does the processing times vary for nationalities? What is the timeline for Pakistanis? Okay, very important. Actually, this is a very important point I must make. So, for most everyone in the world, the processing time will be roughly the same. As I mentioned, maybe if you're from Iran, it might take a little bit longer because there'll be an extra layer of due diligence. But I do want to point out that particularly for Chinese and Indian nationals, they started doing EB3 a long time ago. It became wildly popular. They knew it was a great program and a great opportunity. And so for Indians and Chinese, the line is very long. Can't say for certain, but we guess probably somewhere around 10 to 15 years. So it's not exact, although they can still apply, it's not exactly practical for them to apply. They're welcome to. I mean, they can throw their hat in and see what happens. But it really, there's probably more practical ways for them to get to the U.S. For all other countries, it's basically about the same amount of time. It's going to probably take a couple of years or so. With certain nationalities and with certain individuals too, there might be an extra level of due diligence. So we can't guarantee an exact amount of time, but I think a few years is very reasonable from the very start of the process until you actually land in the U.S. Okay, so what would the average cost of an application be? All total is $45,000, and with an additional government fee or a premium processing fee of $3,500 and some additional family member fees. Okay. Question about premium processing. Is it really 15 days? Yes, it is. So, but it's for a certain part of the application process. When we actually apply to what's called USCIS, U.S. Immigration and Citizenship Services, that's in Washington, D.C., there are two pathways. One is you could just put your application in and wait, and that could take anywhere from 1 to 2 years. There's no guarantee. We don't know. You're dealing with a government bureaucracy, and they make no promises. However, if you choose to spend an extra $3,500 on something that's called premium processing, it's a guaranteed 15-day turnaround. I see it all the time. They really do it in 15 days. It costs a little extra money, but then that gets you your approval, your initial approval for the green card, for permanent residency, which then allows you to schedule an interview at the U.S. consulate or embassy nearest to you. So yeah, 50 days, it's amazing. It gives people peace of mind just to know that what the result is. However, if client's not in a huge hurry and they're saying maybe I can't relocate to the U.S. for 2 or 3 years or longer, then maybe it's not necessary for them to do that. But I just always find that people are very anxious, and I always like to see them get a result, in a couple weeks. Yeah. Do you have to work at this job? Yes. This employer is sponsoring you. That's the employer right now in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So this is the job that you have to work at. It's the one that we have offered, but it's a good job. So, and that's the key to this program is that this employer sponsors you, gives you the opportunity to come to the U.S. The employer invests time and money into sponsoring you. So yeah, it is required to work there. However, your spouse can work anywhere. Your spouse can apply for any job or take any job he or she wants. And in fact, a lot of couples kind of strategize. They'll say, okay, I'm, I have an MBA and I want to work in banking. So why don't the husband, why don't you work in the warehouse, and the wife who's has experience in banking, she takes she'll apply for a job in banking. So that's I think a strategy that some families kind of work out. Okay, when you land, can you move to other locations, start your own business immediately after landing? Well, most importantly is the main applicant has to go to work at this location. So it's it's a warehouse job, so it can't be done remotely. You can't zoom into these jobs. So the main applicant would have to live near the at this location basically. The family can live anywhere. So I've seen families in the past where maybe the father takes the job and goes to work there, and maybe the wife and kids live in Texas where they have brothers and sisters and family already living there, and the husband just visits the family occasionally, for a while. Can you start? Yeah, you can start your own business while working at this job. There's absolutely no problem with that. So again, you have just because you're working at this job doesn't mean that, you still have all the rights of a U.S. permanent resident. So you can work anywhere in the U.S., or you can take, I should say, you can take a second job. You can start a business. Yeah, so it has quite a lot of flexibility to it. I think that this is really one of the greatest programs, immigration programs in the world, for the reason that when your family lands in the U.S., you're permanent residents. I mean, that's incredible. So it's the husband, the wife, the children, they're all permanent residents, and it's not necessarily dependent on the main applicant at that point. So the process can take just a couple years, and the family can be a permanent resident. It has a benefit of when you move to the new country, you have a job that has health care, which is a big deal in America. So and most everyone qualifies. You don't have to have a high score on an English language exam, or a master's degree, or having been an executive at a global company. This is a very welcoming program, and it's a program that's been around since 1990. So that it's tens of thousands of families have gone through this program successfully, and started to live their American dreams. So there's no other program quite like it, really, in the world. I think if you compare it to Canada, where you have to go to if you get a work permit and go to Canada, and you have to work for 2 years, and if the business closed down or the company fired you, you lose your work permit, and the whole family have to move home. That's not the case with EB3. If you move to Allentown and the company closed down after 6 months, that would not affect your permanent residency, because you're a permanent resident. So like I said, this company will not close down after 6 months. It's a large, substantial company that's been around for decades. But it's just for an example that you have a lot of freedom, and you get kind of the top tier of American immigration benefits right away. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I encourage you to speak to your financial advisor, speak to me. If anyone wants to speak to me about more exact pricing, that's fine too. But I think it's good that we sit down with you individually and discuss the payment plan and the payment strategy, as well as the total cost for you and your family. All right. Well, everyone have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. And I look forward to hearing from you.